Hello, good night everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Larry. Is the sound okay? The microphone is well positioned?
Yeah.
All right. So I want to start by with this little story. This past week, while I was thinking about this presentation, I felt like invoking the presence of Hermes. And for those who are not well familiar with archetypes, Hermes is the messenger. He is, in astrology, he's Mercury, so it's related to communication, information, the message bearer, but also he's the trickster. So, it was curious that today, while I had such a busy week that I was preparing my talk today, this afternoon, and I needed to be really focused on what I was doing, and I was working here, and people just kept coming and interrupting me. So Hermes was already present. He was kind of trying to tell me that, all right, you're here to focus on your mind, and I'm drawing your attention that I have demands for you. Other people, they wanted to be here. I'm telling this story, it's going to make sense later as we progress, but I think it was really interesting, so I'm here honoring the presence of Hermes that I have invoked, and I hope by playing out Hermes, I'm aware that I'm kind of playing a trickster spirit, and some of the things that I'm going to say here may not resonate very well with some people or may feel uncomfortable with that. We just have to keep in mind that as soon as we are talking about an archetype, we are already working in its field. So that's just how it is. So going back to basics, what are psychedelics, right? I mean, we've been talking a lot about that, but if we go back to 60 years, we're going to realize that many names have been given to these substances that we call psychedelics or entheogens today. Schizotoxin, which toxic in a way that causes schizophrenia. It already has been called as fantasticant, eliciting fantasy. Hallucinogen or illusogen, which is generating hallucinations or illusions. Psychodysleptic, distorting or disrupting the mind. Paneurotime, making feelings visible. Anirogen, generating dreams. Psychotoxin, toxic to the mind. Deliriant, causing delirium. Psychotogen, mystical mimetic, psychotomimetic, finally psychedelic and entheogen. So as we can see, there have been many ideas about these substances, and I think what we can learn from this is that all these names are telling more about the people who coined them than about the substance themselves. Not only the people, but the times in which these ideas were, developed. So, for the sake of our talk here, I'm just going to focus on the three main, categories that we are familiar with here. And so, let me begin with hallucinogen, generating hallucinations. I would define it as it represents kind of a pre-Kantian worldview, meaning that we think of an objective world out there that is knowable by the ordinary senses. And for the opposite of that would be that non-ordinary states are illusions caused by dysfunction or intoxication of the brain, because they are not part of this world that is knowable by the senses. And of course, this is the preferred term by the medical establishment today. Psychedelic, manifesting the mind, it inserts something new in the game, which is the idea that there is usefulness in non-ordinary states. They are not only hallucinations, but they can be used to boost creativity, to solve problems, reduce anxiety, and so forth, as we can see in all the experiments being done. So they are preferred by techies and scientists in general. And there's this idea of fine-tuning of brain processes that is really hip these days. And there's another term for that, psychointegrator, coined by Michael Winkelmann. I'll get to that soon. And finally, entheogens, generating the divine within. So it takes it to another step and adds a spiritual dimension to these non-ordinary states, not only about the brain or creativity, but it blends the idea of God with the idea of nature, bringing this new field of God as spirituality. Therefore, it's preferred by ecofeminists, alternative healers, New Age community, and so forth. I'm going to quickly go through what I think are the pitfalls of all these categories. And hallucinogens, of course, it limits what can be known to the sensate, outside world, so it's all about empiricism. In psychedelics, the terminology is charged with the turbulent atmosphere of the 60s, so it evokes memories, emotions, reactions, and some people have preferred to use other terminologies to kind of avoid, that turbulent times that brought up, the war on drugs and all that. And there's also another problem, which is that for the scientists and techies in general, people who like to think of psychedelics as meaning manifesting the mind, it's implicit that subjectivity is a human trait, that it's only a human quality. And finally, we have entheogens that take it, the risk is the religious messianism, or what Ken Wilber would call divine egoism. So the focus is on the divine within. It's like, I am God, this power, we are all taking care of ourselves first. I think it has some kind of Ayn Rand-esque feeling to it, brought up to the, ecological concerns. So there's a couple of alternatives. Psychointegrators, as I said, coined by Michael Winkelmann. And his idea is that the substances integrate the different brain structures. So he talks about all the three different parts of the brain. And the pitfall, of course, is the idea that is floating around of hacking consciousness. I'm also going to address that. Another idea from Stan Grof, holotropic, which is toward wholeness. But I think that on the other side, we tend to take height for wholeness, meaning that we go out there, and the idea of oneness that have been discussed here and is being talked about everywhere. And finally, what seems to be my favorite one, ecodelics, coined by Professor Richard Doyle from Penn State University. And the idea is that ecodelics, they don't only manifest the mind, but they manifest the ecosystem. So it addresses this interdependence between, in a systemic view. But the pitfalls is group thinking, which can be seen, in the whole this movement towards ecology and New Age, which could be a flatland view of eco. I don't think we are yet ready to totally comprehend what we mean when we say nature. We tend to project kind of a pristine quality to nature, and we don't understand the fact that nature can be, here or there. It can be a beautiful experience being nature, but it can be a terrifying experience. And nature is also, death is a part of the cycle of nature. So there's something there that we fail to address by the use of this term. So I'm talking about tacit presuppositions. I've already addressed a few of them. Just to wrap up a little bit, they are cross-fertilized between the multiple fields. So regardless of what terminology you prefer to use, usually we're coming with these ideas. They are already embedded deep in our psyches. And part of it is the psychedelic panacea, the idea that these medicines are, the silver bullet approach is the idea that they are going to solve our problems, they're going to heal our illnesses, they're going to bring happiness and joy. And if you really think about it, isn't that what the pharmaceutical industry is doing? Isn't that what the advertisement industry is doing to us? Trying to tell us that we have to be happy, that we have to experience life as this wonderful, complete, integral thing without pain, without suffering, without having to face loss or darkness. So what brings us to what I believe is a strong Christian legacy between all the ideas that we have upon the substances, which is a monotheistic worldview, the silver bullet approach, the idea of healing our, fixing ourselves, solving our problems. It navigates around the idea of individualism, the emphasis on light, oneness, the tunnel of light, salvation. These are all Christian features. So which brings us to another tacit presupposition that I want to address here, which is the relationship between psychedelics and technology, which begins with, I think it really caught fire with Timothy Leary. And we can see it reflected today, in many workshops or online courses, and people are using this kind of terminologies. I have actually these ones that are quoted here. I copied them from the internet, so it's not, I didn't invent this. They are actually being, advertised out there. Ideas as hack your biological system to select for longevity. Or this one is really intense, reprogramming of emotional malware, getting rid of psychological viruses, and rebooting and upgrading your personal and spiritual operating system. How technological can you get? We have to, in the back of this idea of hacking consciousness, there's also a hacking consciousness meetup that already happened here at CIS a couple of times, and it was packed with people. So if we go and try to analyze what hacking means, you go to, I went to the dictionary, and there it is. Some of the definitions here, it's to cut or mutilate as if by hacking, right? To chop or cut something, which brings me, it's the scientific idea, the atomistic idea, right? That you reduce everything to the building blocks of existence. You just cut through everything you analyze, you break down into pieces. Or you gain access to a computer file or network illegally or without authorization. So behind this idea of hacking consciousness, there's also, sort of playing around with, cheating, pretty much. So that carries, the whole Christian idea that we are gods and we are entitled to just go and cheat nature. That wisdom is in us and it's not outside. So... and also entheogens, I think, is also tied to these very ideas, but in a different frequency. But as you can see, Christianity says that the divine enters flesh through the person of Jesus Christ. And now we are understanding that the divine enters flesh through these entheogens that we ingest. For Christianity, Jesus redeems us of our sins, and we are using entheogens now, all these clinical trials and everything to try to redeem us of our pathologies, to try to heal our illnesses. And instead of eternal life, we're looking for eternal youth. We can see that being manifested in the many festivals and this whole youth culture embracing, this psychedelic renaissance. Living suffering on earth for salvation in heaven had become living suffering on earth for salvation in another planet, the interstellar, kind of journey, or in another dimension. So people who become psychonauts and they just don't want to come back. They prefer to live in another dimension than to stick our feet here on the ground and grow some roots. And finally, being afraid of demons or pagan gods or whatever it is tantamount to the idea that fragmentation is bad, that we don't want to be fragmented. We don't want to have all these multiple personalities talking to us. We don't want to have, these beings. We want to be integral. We want to be one. We want to be, healed. This is very interesting. I took this from a comic book that I found in Oakland, street market fair. And the script was written by Tim Leary himself. And as you can see, it says a lot here. The evolution of intelligence is what we're really looking at here. The nervous system learned to operate, dialing and tuning our realities to the image we like best. So here we have, the entheogenic, psychedelic, technological, milieu. Everything is displayed in here. And as you can see, that little character down there, which I love him. He's amazing, isn't he? He's right here. It's the brain on a stick, right? So for Leary, our bodies are not really that important once we discover that the source of everything is our heads, our minds, our brains, psychedelics, right? Manifesting the mind. Without my body robot having a fabulous time operating, I don't have time to read it all, but I think you can get the gist of it. So here it is. What I love about Tim Leary is that he was pretty honest about his ideas. So he wasn't trying to pretend he wasn't someone. you know, he was saying, high priest, it's there, you know, it's in your face. So he's bringing the whole idea of Christianity and religion and science together in our eyes, in front of our eyes. Which brings us to what's happening these days, right? We have DMT, the spirit molecule, which was a huge success and launched the film and the movement. And here we have another scientist, Rick Strassman, trying to understand entheogens or psychedelics with a Christian background, coming from, you know, what Timothy Leary started and bringing it to our times. And as you can see, the image, this is a painting by Alex Gray, and it also depicts this Christian idea of the soul leaving the body, becoming spirit, going into the light. But here you go. So if we can handle this, if we can handle Strassman and the idea of the spirit molecule, we have to be able to handle this as well, right? I mean, if we can reduce things to a molecule and the molecule can explain everything, why not the moral molecule, you know, that some of us may have and others don't? And I mean, look, I respect everybody. I'm not trying to, you know, disrespect anyone, but how much white privilege and Christian, you know, idea can you handle? So, curiously enough, Strassman's recent book makes visible what was once concealed. The fact that, yes, his main focus of interest is a new science of spiritual revelation in the Hebrew Bible. So here it goes. As you can see, Christianity is in the backdrop of everything. I mean, 2,000 years of Christianity is a lot. We can't escape it. It's within every one of us. Only what I'm trying to do here is sort of psychologizing it, trying to see through the symbols that create our stories. So visionary art is a very good way of trying to capture that idea. As we can see here, the focus is the human being as some kind of God. We have all this, you know, geometrical patterns and perspective, as you can see on the floor, and it's this particular one is all just hues of blue and white, which makes us think of, you know, this white light, pure light. There's no nature here whatsoever. This other one here, the Fibonacci sequence, you can see on the left side, you know, something that resembles a microchip, but the guy is doing yoga, and you can see the plants growing and repeating the same pattern. So there's the idea of oneness with the environment as well, but it's drawn to this, centered in this idea of the human being as the focus of where everything is happening. Another one, this one is pretty famous, Alex Gray. What I want to call our attention to in this particular one is the perspective. So, you know, the whole geometry here. Also, the person is in the center of the picture. And even if we take it to the idea of goddess spirituality and you know, women's spirituality, the patterns repeat themselves. The person is some kind of god or goddess who is in the center of attention, of focus of everything, and we can see lots of geometrical figures and patterns and so forth. So bringing it out to a halt, let's invoke Aldous Huxley. And I have this quotation from him. It goes without saying that this kind of temporary self-transcendence is no guarantee or permanent enlightenment or lasting improvement of conduct, as opposed to what these images and these ideas that I have been talking about imply. It is a gratuitous grace which is neither necessary nor sufficient for salvation, but which, is, if properly used, can be enormously helpful to those who have received it. So, now, departing from Huxley, if we're not brains on sticks, as is presupposed by the whole idea of psychedelics, what do psychedelics do then? So I have a couple of ideas that I want to share with you here. First, by beginning to use a description by Richard Doyle that I really appreciate. They are non-specific amplifiers of consciousness. Emphasis on the non-specific part of the phrase here. And that experience is conditioned by the rhetorical context. So that is pretty much set and setting. So of course we have been, getting to know these ideas that the intention we go for ceremony, or if you go, partake with psychedelics with somebody in nature is one thing. If you're taking it in a party for recreational purposes, you're not going to have any kind of spiritual revelation. You're just going to have some fun or whatever it is that you are invoking in your experience. And of course, also the kind of stuff that you think about the world, what you read, the ideas that you have been, sitting with, they all influence how the experience is going to come out. Human says something really important here. Recognizing words as independent carriers of soul between people. We need to recall that we do not just make words up or learn them in school, or ever have them fully under control. Words, like angels, are powers which have invisible power over us. So depending on how we address psychedelics or entheogens or psychomimetics, ecodelics, we are already defining the experience just by naming them. Thank you. I also have some other ideas here that nature can be seen in this other perspective as a language, not as much as a finished product, or nature is a way of getting into relationship. So just like we heard in Jordan's lecture here, the plants speak to us. So it's a relationship of multiple beings in conversation. And it's also an alchemical process. I think that can be seen, especially in shamanic journeys with ayahuasca and other, entheogens, because we start with the broken, with death, chaos, descent. That compensates the emphasis on spirit that us in the West here are highlighting the whole scientific, enterprise and clinical research. It's more focused on spirit. It's more focused on transcendence. And ceremony brings us down to earth. So it's a journey, it's a descent, a journey of descent. And still using the alchemical metaphor here, alchemy brings to surface what culture represses, and fragmentation begins first. So we can't think about integration before we engage into fragmentation. We have to fragment, you have to get fragmented before we can think of integrating all these different aspects of ourselves. And so I invoke here a reversal of the alchemical idea to our times, inspired by Professor Craig Chalkist from the EWP department, that to make the silver chain, to turning the gold into silver, which is all this Christian background that I've been addressing here has also elements of Buddhism and Eastern spirituality. And this is pretty much the story of the past 5,000 years that my professor from PCC, Rick Tarnas, has named the heliocentric myth that we have been living. So the idea now is to move a little bit from the solar understanding of the universe. We are, the divine radiators of consciousness, of divine purity and healing, and try to delve more into this lunar silver tradition, one that is more participatory and relational. So in the end, it brings me back to the original definition from Humphrey Osmond in a letter that he wrote to Aldous Huxley when he coined the term psychedelics. Because actually, if you think about it, psyche, when we say psyche in psychology, we're not talking about the mind. Psyche refers to the soul. In Greek, it was the breath, life, soul. The very idea that we understand psychedelics as manifesting the mind shows how much the soul is renegated in a Christian worldview. The soul is sinful. Spirit is blessed. So the soul has been cast away. And I'm claiming that we return to the soul now and hold the term psychedelic for a moment so we can understand what it really means. And if there's no place for soul in the Christian techno world, where does it dwell? The soul dwells in animism. It's a world where everything is alive, and it's a world populated by these multiple beings. Not all of them are you know, benefic, or not all of them are good, or not all of them have good intentions towards you, but they are multiple beings nonetheless. And when these, you know, multiple beings in this animistic world or this polytheistic world are not provided for, when these gods and daimons are not given their proper place and recognition, they become diseases. That's what Jung had been talking about. And, you know, students of psychology probably have heard that quote before. So now I want to talk a little bit about the soul. What happens when we renegade the soul, when we take the soul out of our concern, of our consciousness, conscious concern? It manifests, you know, in the subterraneans of the mind. It manifests from the underworld. And I think that these old magazines, you know, science fiction and horror and mystery, they're amazing. Here we have ERIE, right? That's an honor to you, Larry. But as you can see, it's so perfect. To struggle is useless. You cannot escape. No, no, it's not possible. So, you know, the monsters that dwell in the underworld are going to eat you alive if we don't, you know, acknowledge their existence and that they are part of our souls. Follow me into the unknown. Here we have the figure of the vampire. And how do we combat a vampire? With a crucifix, right? You know, bringing light. Light is going to destroy the powers of darkness. Invasion of the Saucer Man, that one is really important because we can see the size of the brain of these creatures, and which I believe is telling us a lot about how we focus our energies in our brains and our minds. And, you know, in the nighttime when we're sleeping, it's haunting us because we know we have been arrested by this idea, that we are imprisoned by this idea, and it's taking over. It's coming and you know, abducing us. Out of the night, right? When death touches her, she's already starts being transformed. So there's no escape. Once you get into the darkness, you're contaminated. I love this one too, the tunnel, right? That's this modern idea of progress. You're going and, you know, using our tools and, you know, just building. And, oh, the tunnel is nearly finished. Another few feet and we will shake hands with Eddie and his man. And what's waiting on the other side? We have, you know, our unconscious and all the monsters that we have repressed. And finally, the other one here, we can see this mask. Thank you. This mask, you know, the resemblance that it has to a pagan, you know, imagery and the butterfly and all that. And it's, of course, it's portrayed as evil here. Now, what happens if we learn how to tend the soul instead of repressing the soul and allowing it to manifest as it will? We have a different picture. And I call, you know, to attention the pictures, paintings of Pablo Amaringo. And as you can see, how multiple these images are. There's not a single human being in the center of the image. You can seldom, you rarely, I don't think you're going to find that in any of his paintings. But it's populated by all these different beings, and they all have, you know, the same significance and importance in the painting.